This is The Reckoning, 13 July 2026, show number 334, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. Benjamin Franklin once said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. In today's show, we're going to discuss several things that involve security and freedom and the balance in between. But this quote should remain forefront in your mind. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Again, I marvel all the time at the absolute genius of our founding fathers. You, as an American in today's society, are surveilled more than at any time in history. On my drive to work today, at every major intersection except one, I passed a flock camera. This means the deep state knows exactly where I left from and exactly where I went to. They know how long it took. They have photos of me in my truck driving there. They have phone tracking ability that lets them know what I purchased yesterday. Because of the ease and comfort of using online banking, they have full details of every dollar I spend and how I earn all of my money. If I were to allow it, and my wife is in agreement with me, Google Alexa and the various computer cameras inside our home would allow them to spy on us inside our home. Let me say this very clearly to you. The Fourth Amendment, which I just read, is dead. Your right to privacy is gone. We live in George Orwell's 1984 as Big Brother is always watching us. They just haven't put the whip on our back yet. Now, we collectively, in my opinion, are a disgrace to our forefathers that fought so hard for freedom. And we're going to pay a heavy price when all the tools of surveillance that we have granted the state are put in the hands of an authoritarian. A real one. I know what you're saying. Well, that can't happen here. Hate has no home here. Sure it can. Look what our own government did to us during the COVID lockdowns. Now imagine those lockdowns enforced by flock cameras and drones flying to your home demanding that you surrender to the police station because your bank records show that you tithe to a church they consider unlawful. Consider if they armed these same drones and used them to execute you. Oh, that could never happen in America. It already has. Barack Obama executed an American citizen via drone with zero due process. Now, for the crowd that believes that the Constitution will protect you, remember, the vast majority of Democrats want conservative Americans in re-education camps. I wonder if they'll use Dachau or Auschwitz as their primary blueprint. Now, I applaud the patriots that are going around right now cutting down these flock cameras. Am I going to do this myself? Absolutely not. I've been to jail. I've paid a price. I don't ever want to go back. But I am going to petition my government for redress the way I'm allowed to do by asking the Frisco City Council to take these cameras down. I'm also going to speak with the state representative about this, as I know he holds constitutional liberties sacrosanct. And no, it's not the clown that occupies House District 106. I will also join any lawsuit that seeks to actually protect our privacy rights, which the Supreme Court has previously said that our freedom to move without being surveilled is a privacy right. We must do something or we're going to lose everything. For those of you that think that a dictator cannot come to America, I spent 2 years in prison for peacefully protesting a stolen election. They installed a president and ruled the country for 4 years with an unelected puppet. I'm telling you, we've already had a dictator. His name was Joseph Biden, or more importantly, or more realistically, the staff that was behind him. But there's another man who I believe has probably been born and is growing up right now. He bears the title Antichrist. And the tools that we are providing the deep state right now, flock, FISA, digital currency, he will use to identify all Christians and he will execute us. It's in the Bible. It's going to happen. So what is wrong with the American character? Have we forgotten that the state is an enemy? The first enemy. The entire American political system is built on restraining government. Yet we have allowed, in the name of security, an apparatus that has stripped us of free speech, freedom of movement, freedom from surveillance, and will soon strip us of our freedoms, period. We are simply one enabling law away from being placed on trains. Arm yourselves. It is the last protection you have against this rogue government that we are allowing. All right, that's the rant for the day. I know it was a long one, and I do apologize, but I've got a bee in my bonnet about these flock cameras. And let me just tell you, I am late to the party on this. I freely admit it. But it didn't really creep into my consciousness because I had other more important things like trying to stay out of a Biden gulag in mind and trying to run for office so I could put a stop to things like the fascism of flock. Now, flock cameras have been installed nationwide. Rocks, at the bottom of this note, there is a map of where they are inside the United States. And I think I posted the link dflock.com in the pill as well. But they've been installed nationwide without much fanfare. I just said in Carpenter versus the United States, a 2018 Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court stated that individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the comprehensive record of their physical movements. So, what do flock cameras do? And this is right from Flock's Safety's website. They are an automated license plate reader with systems designed to capture and analyze vehicle details in public spaces for law enforcement communities, businesses, and neighborhoods. Capture vehicle fingerprints. They take still images of passing vehicles, often from behind, reading license plates, full, partial, or even missing ones, and identifying their visible characteristics like make, model, color, damage, bumper stickers, trailers, bike racks, or aftermarket modifications. Using machine learning and computer vision, they generate a vehicle fingerprint with time, location, and details. The data goes to a cloud database for searches. They check against hot lists for stolen vehicles, Amber Alerts, and send instant notifications to police or users when matches occur. Now, this sounds great when it's used to stop people that might be kidnapping a child in Amber Alerts or a stolen car, but here's the problem. Who defines evil? What if instead of searching for criminals, they decide to search for people that joined Turning Point USA? Or they fingerprint every car that went to a Trump rally or attended Elevate Life Church this weekend? And yes, going to and from my church on each major intersection, there is a flock camera. Is this system infallible? In February of this year, a flock camera in Sherwood, Arkansas misread the license plate of an SUV, leading officers to detain an innocent couple at gunpoint while their 6-week-old baby sat along in a car seat in the back of the vehicle. All right. Again, there are plenty of articles about this. All right. Again, I just mentioned one case. So what is the actual mathematical data on it? All right. A recent uptick in ALPR errors owes largely to flock safety, which in the past several years has become the leading ALPR provider in the market. The company claims its cameras accurately capture 93 out of every 100 license plates that pass by them. They also claim that they look at 20 billion individual license plate readings per month. So they're accurate on 93 out of 100. And they look at 20 billion. Now, again, I'm no mathematical genius, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Select once in my life. So let's do a little bit of math here. All right. That is 1.4 billion errors per month. Yes, you heard that right. Billion. Now, the Constitution requires reasonable suspicion before the government can seize you at gunpoint. And these flock cameras with a 7% error margin are being used to hold you at gunpoint. So I'd like to go back a little bit in history. I said earlier that we are a disgrace to Americans of yesteryear. So let's put a little history into this. After the Stamp Act was passed and the British Parliament passed it in March of 1765 to raise revenue from the American colonies to pay for troops that they used to help the American colonies in the French and Indian War. It required a tax stamp on many paper items, legal documents, newspapers, licenses, playing cards. The colonists rightly said it is taxation without representation, since they had no seats in Parliament. Colonial resistance, led by the Sons of Liberty, was swift, organized, and violent. Protesters used effigies hung and burned. Mobs attacked the homes of the tax collectors and their property. They tarred and feathered or threatened to tar and feather tax collectors, and there were public pressure and boycotts put on the businesses owned by the tax collectors. The net result of this violence was that virtually all stamp distributors resigned under duress before the act's November 1st, 1765 effective date or shortly thereafter. The tax was never collected because they could not find men and women that were willing to collect it. Do we have that force of will? I'm going to be honest. I doubt it seriously. Americans stood by and watched when the presidency was stolen. We are overtaxed, surveilled, and imprisoned without cause. We watch daily as our government does nothing but create sound bites to campaign on. Jim Jordan, has there been one effective prosecution from his entire congressional committee? Has one Democrat been held accountable for the deep state's actions during the Biden dictatorship? Are they going to pass the SAVE Act? No. Have they done anything on the deficit? No. Are we now at war with a nation? New war? Without a declaration of war as the Constitution calls for? Yes. I'm at a loss, folks. I don't understand this. Now, does your city have a flock contract? Looked it up. Grok is a great tool. Just seriously, while you're listening to me, Grok your city and a flock contract and see what they have. So the city began installing flock cameras in late 2024 after receiving grant funding, $437,000 from the Texas Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. In October 2025, the Frisco City Council approved an agreement with TxDOT and Flock Safety to expand the network, adding more cameras at major intersections, building towards a citywide system with dozens of units. Over the weekend on Facebook, and I despise Meta, but this is where I saw it, the City of Prosper's police department announced that they had a flock drone. How long before they just arm them so that they can kill the politically undesirable? What would our forefathers have done? I'm at a loss. I can't tell you to do anything illegal. I'm not advocating that you do anything illegal, but at what point do we say enough with this surveillance society? Rox, have there been any reports of flock cameras being taken down in Florida? Because looking at the map that's down there, I'm seeing Florida as a big, bright gold state, as in you are completely inundated with flock. Other than that little notch area where the Everglades are, and you and I both know that, south of Tampa and north of Miami in the center of Florida. So are they doing anything? Have you heard of patriots cutting these systems down?
I haven't heard of anything specifically. I think last week or the week prior, somebody was talking about it in the middle of nowhere, Florida, and I'm not sure if those got cut down or taken down. I'm looking it up now to see if I find anything.
I saw that same thing. It was in the middle of the Everglades. Somebody either went out to hunt or fish. I can't remember which, and they were shocked because literally it's a dirt road and I think swamp on each side, and there's a pole with a flock camera on it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And what are they saying? What do they always say? Why do we need this? We need it for security. We need to know there's bad men out there. And to be fair, 100,000 criminals have been caught in this nationwide dragnet that they have, and they say 10,000 missing persons have been returned. That's great news. How many have been wrongfully detained? Go ahead, Rox.
I was just going to say, what I found real quick is there is some vandalism in Volusia County, if I'm saying that right, and then there is an official removal being done in Bay County, Florida. There was a lot of petitions done and raised concerns over the installation of them without public input, so they have terminated some of the contracts in that county for Florida.
Well, that's good to hear. And again, that is the right way to do it, to petition your city council to have them removed. I don't think anybody really, it's one of those things where they're going to say, well, we use it for good. Sure you do. All right, go ahead, Dr. A, and then I'll come to you, RS Combat Vet.
So I looked up, and the county does have some contracts for unincorporated areas, and one or two of the major cities have contracts. And it says there have been public debates and opposition at Board of Supervisors meetings over privacy, data sharing, and expansion of the system, including concerns about federal access and civil liberties. Some delays in contract votes occurred due to these issues. So there's no incidences of physical sabotage or cutting of flock cameras in our area, but there's been quite a bit of a stir at the board meetings.
I know there were a couple in Texas, and there was a guy that put out a video on how to disable them that I actually have somewhere in my timeline. So again, I applaud these patriots. Just be aware that I believe it is a Class B misdemeanor that can be punished with up to 6 months in jail in most locations. All right, go ahead, RS Combat Vet.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I know you guys may have covered this already because I just popped in, but I don't know if it's been brought up about how I think it was the California Sheriff's Department or basically law enforcement, California is suspending their contracts with Flock, which I found really interesting because I've been very I'm very pro Fourth Amendment, obviously, and I definitely don't agree with these things whatsoever. But I found it really interesting that it was California, one of the places where, if we're all being really honest, if we could use this system in a positive way, that's probably a good place to start. Maybe there, Chicago, some of these other sanctuary states and cities, maybe that's a good place to have it because you give ICE access to that. And that's going to make the job a whole lot easier. But what's bugging me about it is we have these things. They're everywhere. So why are cars still getting stolen and not being found? Why are illegals not being ripped out of this country by the root everywhere that these places are full of Flock? It should already be empty. They're tracking every move of every single person. Why isn't it empty is what I'm wondering. But you guys noticed that, or is anybody else on that same page of I find it interesting. California is the first one to be we don't want the attention here. You guys need to stop looking at our people. I'm maybe there's obviously positive and negative, but the negatives, I guess, in the long run are going to outweigh the positives. But if it's here, why isn't it being used?
No, I hear you on that. You're absolutely right. I'll let my California co-host answer. Go ahead, Dr. A, and then we'll come to you, Jason.
Okay, so there's been no blanket state action around Flock or Flock contracts. Some cities and departments have suspended, terminated, or chosen not to renew contracts due to privacy and data sharing. LAPD recently ended its agreement set to expire. Santa Cruz terminated its contract in early 2026. Mountain View turned off cameras and ended its deal. Other localities have faced protester reviews, but as I mentioned a moment ago when I searched in my own county, they recently approved an extension through 2027 despite the debate.
All right, awesome. Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks for the mic. Thanks for the space. Always enjoy listening in. First time speaker on this space. But to go back to the earlier question of the dumbest members of Congress, I think or former members, Eric Swalwell definitely up there. Anthony Weiner definitely up there. I think the dumb ones are usually the puppets, the useful idiots, as they say. And it's the shifty ones, if you catch my drift, are the ones that are the most dangerous. Adam being the top member of Congress that I would like to see removed here, and I'm from California. How he becomes a senator and beats Steve Garvey in the same year the Dodgers win the World Series. I don't understand.
Agree.
But if the 2020 election was stolen, and I believe it was, there was no way on God's green earth 81 million people voted for a guy in his basement. Then a little Measure 50 or a little mayorship or township or governorship or whatever, those are little piddly elections too, those that are stealing the elections by and large. And California's been rigged for a long time. The whole top two vote getters in the primary always advance to the final, and they run a stable of Democrats. They were on the ballot this year, there were 50 names for governor, and 25 of them were Democrats. So they're just playing a numbers game, and then they take
62.
There you go. And then they just wait forever to count and figure out where they need to be, and then make those adjustments, and then up and run. Now on the security side of things, conversation here on the cameras in China, they got 12 cameras for every citizen. That's the ratio. They've got 12 billion, 15 billion cameras deployed, and that's coming to a corner near you here in the United States. And I just say what the flock is happening. And for me, the biggest device of control, something you said earlier about Antichrist, is the capability to buy and sell. And whether that's via central bank digital currency or some other credit scoring system or social credit scoring system, whatever it might be, that mechanism is going to be the mechanism. And I firmly believe COVID, amongst other experiments that we're conducting, was also a run-up. Who's just simply going to comply? They made it to where you can't go to work, you can't go to the restaurant, you can't shop, you can't do this, you can't travel. Almost made it impossible. Not quite. I was still able to hold a job. I had to wear a mask. I was one of 100 people at an office because I was the one, apparently only one, that refused the jab. And I had to wear a mask every day, all day, at my desk, inside the office, because I was unvaccinated and a threat to my colleagues. But I believe that was also to test compliance. Who would just sign on, and how far can we take this? And that was, I think a test run for it, amongst the other biological experiments and bioweapons and what have you. But I think the conversation at this point is purely good versus evil. We're past Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. We're purely we've regressed to the mean, we've regressed to good versus evil. And what's good is bad now, and what's bad is good now.
Yep.
And that sets the stage for a figure like the Antichrist to come in and save us from ourselves, because we're on the brink, whether it's Ukraine and Russia or Iran, Israel, and U.S., our own domestic issues here. There's just upheaval everywhere. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to continue without any there's no salvation to be had from any man on this earth. That's only going to come from one place. And before that happens,
you need to wrap up.
Sorry,
you had a while going, and we're on timeline, so I apologize.
Sure. I'm just going to say the stage is being set, and the pawns are being positioned, as well as the cameras. And the biggest security mechanism threat for me is that once they put a stamp on what you can buy and sell, and that aspect of it, that's mark of the beast-ish right there.
No, you're exactly right. And I foresee that as then they put the thing on your hand or your forehead and away they go. Absolutely not wrong, sir. You're welcome to speak anytime. I'm just trying to, since we've moved from a pure X space to a scheduled 1 hour, we try and keep the timeline pretty much moving, and we do have a lot to cover today. So thank you very much for speaking. Nathan and Guy, we're coming to you guys. Just please direct and to the point. Go ahead, Nathan.
Good afternoon, Colonel, and everyone. These corrupt politicians, some of that were mentioned. Remember Chuck Schumer's had said that the CIA has 10 ways from Sunday to get back at you. And so I'm curious how much are working with them in concert, or is that coercion of threat to do their will?
You're absolutely not wrong. And that is a great lead in to the next topic. But I do want to come to Guy first. But Nathan, good to have you back. See you again. Go ahead, Guy.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me have a mic real quick. I'm new to this space. Just want to introduce myself. I'm Guy. My question is, I put it in the chat too, is notice that Peter Thiel is making his self-known in a place called Deschutes County in Oregon. And is that tied into these cameras? Because there's a lot of cameras being put up here in Oregon. I requested a map. I was wondering if anybody had a map of any of these flock cameras.
Actually, there's one up in the Jumbotron. We've got a map of the flock cameras. And if you go to deflock, the first link in the pill, you'll be able to zoom in on your area. Now, I do believe Peter Thiel either owns this company or is a part owner of it, but I need to look that up. And I only say that because I saw it mentioned in a couple of other places, but there's a link worth looking at as well. All right, let's talk about, Nate segued into it, the CIA. One of the foremost proponents of every single war that I can remember is Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham was the senator from South Carolina, and he passed away on Saturday at the age of 71. The D.C. Medical Examiner says that he passed away from what is called an aortic dissection, which is basically a tear in your aorta. It's linked to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, hardening of the arteries. Now, I'm surprised a vampire like Lindsey still has arteries. I figured he'd just be a giant blood bag walking around. Now, President Trump weighed in on Lindsey Graham's death, telling Meet the Press that Graham called him in the early evening to tell him that it was all set for the Save America Act, and that it may have been the last call that Graham made. I'd like to know what Lindsey's voting record on that was, because he strikes me as a Thunite, somebody that is going to say he's going to help President Trump, but not. And again, my issue with Lindsey Graham that I will never get past is that he told guards inside the Capitol on January the 6th that every protester should be shot in the head that came into the building. And I was one of those people. So I am highly biased against Lindsey Graham. And I'm trying very hard not to speak super ill of the dead, but I am hopeful that we will have a better, more conservative senator from South Carolina. All right. Now, Lindsey Graham had just toured a top secret Ukrainian Skyfall drone factory. Now that makes me mad because I really like that movie Skyfall. I love that scene when James Bond is sitting on top of the buildings and he's looking at all the British flags. Again, not my flag. I appreciate a man's love of his country. All right. And so for them to ruin Skyfall by labeling a factory after it is just an annoyance to me. Now I do appreciate the fact that they've named their drones the Baba Yaga. I like that. The vampire bomber drones. Again, Skyfall is where they manufacture the Baba Yaga. Now, he also announced that he was going to be looking for more Russian sanctions and that he claimed that the U.S. can learn a lot from Ukraine's UAV advancements. It is far more likely that the U.S. defense industry has been using that war to experiment inside Ukraine. Trust me, I know of what I speak. Now, when he was asked about a replacement for Graham, Trump said, I have somebody that I think would be great. But I don't want to say it now because it's too soon with Lindsey. I don't want to even talk about anybody. But I do have somebody that's really good. Now, again, refresh me constitutionally, but I thought it was the governor of South Carolina's job to appoint a senator and not the President of the United States. Am I right on that, Rox?
I actually have no idea.
All right. What about you, Dr. A? What do you...
I
Go
think
ahead.
Trump is encouraging him to do that. I don't think he's ordering, but
So it depends on the state. Like there's another issue going on in another state called Kentucky where they're not allowed to appoint. They have to do special elections. So in this case, for South Carolina, yes, the governor can temporarily appoint until a special election. And Trump came out this morning, sir, and he suggested that Lindsey Graham's sister be his replacement until said vote.
Thank you for adding that to the mix. Now, in reaction to, and again, I've been all over Lindsey. He's the ultimate warmonger to me. And I say that because I have zero respect for a man that did not fight in combat, continuously calling for war. All right. Yes, I realize Lindsey wore the uniform, but he was a JAG, which means he was inside a command post. Was he theoretically in harm's way? Yes, because he served during Desert Storm and they did launch Scud missiles at Riyadh. So he was theoretically in harm's way, but it wasn't like he was a rifleman on a front line somewhere. And again, the metric that every American politician should have before they send or commit troops to war is it worth my son's life? And there has not been a single war, with the exception of the initial invasion of Afghanistan to kill bin Laden, that in my mind is absolutely justified since World War II. And yes, I include my father's war of Vietnam in that mix. I honor every war that we fought and all the soldiers that fought in them. I just don't like the way it's done these days. I want declarations of war the way the Constitution requires, as a speed break on a president employing military forces. Now, in today's day and age, where nuclear missiles can rain down on us in 30 minutes, I get the need for the president to act quickly. But I think we've lost sight of what the original intent of the framers was. But anyway, I digress. Zelensky paid tribute, calling Graham a true defender of freedom and of the values that make our world safer. No, he was a warmonger that wanted to send other people's kids to die. That's who Lindsey Graham was. Sorry. That is how I will remember him. That and being a flaming homosexual. Sorry. That's just who he was. Now, Graham had served in the Senate since 2003 and was seeking a fifth term. The internet immediately went nuts, of course. And on that, Dr. A, I think you covered some of, and we'll get to hands, just bear with us, guys. You covered some of this. Was Lindsey Graham executed by poison, or did the Jews get him? I am so sick of that. The anti-Semitism that is rife in American society today, honestly, is gross. It's grotesque, and it has no place. Go ahead, Dr. A.
Well, sir, he was declared a target by Iran and as well as President Trump and others. But the autopsy has been performed. We know that his artery specifically did burst, if you will, but they are continuing to check for any toxins, poisons, or other that may somehow have been slipped to him during his visit to Ukraine.
Wondered about that too, but I hate the fact that we're at a point in our society where I don't trust a single thing the government says. Not one. Literally not one. All right, guys, I'll come to you real quick, but we do want to move on to the next topic. So go ahead, Jason.
I was just in South Carolina. It is the governor that gets to appoint a senator. Same thing here in California. I know other states might have that go to a snap election or something like that, but or a special election. But I fully agree. I think Lindsey Graham was definitely a warmonger, never met a war he didn't like, was a big proponent of the Ukraine-Russia war, still is. I think he said a dead Russian is a good Russian or something to that effect. And one thing that's interesting, and in addition to the drone factories and whatever else they have going on in Ukraine, they have a lot of bioweapons labs over there. So was he really at the Skyfall, or did he go to one of those labs and something happened? It's just so many questions, and the timing is just, quite frankly, interesting. Or maybe he had a bad heart and it was his time. I don't know if I can buy that quite yet, but interesting that the biolab's there and the entire situation in Ukraine, and he's been all gung-ho for it.
Nope, I appreciate that.
No, don't appoint a sister. That's called nepotism, and we don't need that.
I'm right there with you on that one. I don't like that unless she's got her own qualifications that
Colonel,
would make
do you mind if I for just
1 second? Absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to comment on that. I absolutely agree with you on the nepotism thing, unless she's got her own qualifications that make her fit for the office. All right, go ahead, RSC, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Okay, promise I'll only take about 15 seconds. Like, nowhere near a fan of Lindsey Graham. I have despised that man for so many years. I served back in OIF 1 for 16 months, and as much as like I'm not losing any sleep because I got a big problem with putting a halo on somebody's head just because they're deceased and just being like,
Yep.
oh, it's what. Not everybody's got to be Hitler for you to sigh a relief that their recycling time has come. That's my little point on that. But here's the thing. I think we can all agree that I might be able to hate my brother and talk shit about him, but you don't get to lay a finger on him. And if it comes out that some other nation on this world took a swipe and knocked out one of our senators, that nation needs to be wiped off the map. Wipe it.
Absolutely
you don't touch our brother. Like, I agree 100% with what CS was saying in terms of having, I don't know if it was CS or Colonel, which one of you was talking about, like, I got a problem when, like, non-combat veterans get all uppity about war and this and that. But at the same time, like, those are still my brothers in arms. Like, we can't do our job without them. We can't do our job without JAG.
No,
we can't do our job without financing that.
Listen, I totally agree.
100%. Like, if somebody took him out, they need to, like, Iran should pale in comparison to what happens.
No,
if you take out one of our senators.
You're absolutely right. And I'm not disagreeing with you on the non-combat thing. I just have, like I said, any person who didn't have bullets flying at them or risk their lives defusing bombs like rocks, I don't want you
100.
to be able to send people to war. I just don't. That's the way I'm wired. Jeff, if you promise 15 seconds, I'll come to you because it's time to move on to the next topic. Go ahead, Jeff.
Topic that Bostic looks like maybe Putin might have had something to do with that last time. Him and Richard Blumenthal were there. They sent a drone attack to take out Putin, so it might be the KGB. No, you're
absolutely right. There's a lot of speculation. They hit that drone factory, I think, the day after. Then they hit an apartment building where I believe some NATO members were based for a conference there or a hotel. I can't remember which. So you think the KGB or the RFS, to be more accurate, has been very active. But speaking of nations that honestly I think ought to be wiped off the map, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. A because I asked her to give a slightly different opinion. You guys know how I feel about Iran, and I feel like Dr. A can give us a slightly different perspective about it. So go ahead, Dr. A.
All right. So I am the non-war one over here getting to report on war activity. You can correct me if I did anything wrong. All right. So hold on. U.S.-Iran escalation over the Strait of Hormuz. Over the weekend and into early Monday, the U.S. launched additional strikes on Iranian targets. According to reports, these were aimed at degrading Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the strait. This follows Iranian actions against vessels, including a reported strike on a container ship. Yesterday, using multiple one-way attack surface drones, U.S. Central CENTCOM forces successfully struck a submarine and ship maintenance facility in Iran. So these three Corsair unmanned surface vessels, also called the one-way attack surface drones, hit the port at Bandar Abbas Naval Base, making the first time American forces have employed sea drones in combat operations. Just an FYI, they did use them to help rescue the downed folks a few months ago, but again, it's the first time they've used them in combat operations. Cool. Last night's strikes degraded Iran's ability to continue attacking commercial shipping. President Trump addressed this directly, stating that the U.S. intends to keep and probably run the Strait of Hormuz. He emphasized that America will act as its guardian and seek reimbursement from other nations that benefit from the secure passage. Trump accused Iran of breaking recent agreements and highlighted the success of U.S. operations in neutralizing threats. And just this morning on Truth Social, Trump posted, "The Hormuz Strait is open and will remain open with or without Iran. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade, so named because it's only stopping Iran's ships or customers from entering or leaving. All other countries will have fair and open use of the strait. The USA will be, from this point forward, known as the guardian of the Hormuz Strait, but as such and as matters of fairness, will be reimbursed at the rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. The process and formation will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump." Iran, for its part, has pushed back hard, claiming its own strikes on U.S. interests in the region and asserting control over the waterway. Both sides are trading claims about who truly controls this vital passage, which handles roughly 1/5 of global oil shipments daily. Chinese surveillance vessels. A Chinese spy ship, sometimes identified as the Liaowang 1 or similar intelligence vessel, has been reported tailing U.S. assets, such as the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group in waters near Iran. Beijing has used a combination of ships, satellites, and other means to monitor U.S. military movements in the Middle East. And reports are suggesting that China is providing real-time or near real-time data on U.S. positions to Iran. This includes tracking of naval vessels, aircraft, and other assets. Chinese commercial geospatial intelligence firms like Shanghai-based Mizarvision have publicly posted satellite imagery of U.S. movements, some of which reportedly preceded Iranian retaliatory action. Why does this matter to Americans? Energy prices. We already been told there's global pricing on oil, and oil has already jumped up, and further disruptions could mean higher gas prices at the pump, something families are already feeling. It also raises serious questions about U.S. troop safety, regional stability, and our broader foreign policy in the Middle East. This isn't abstract. It touches supply chains, inflation, and national security. This round of exchanges comes amid longer period of heightened tensions. Senior Iranian officials and clerics have issued or reiterated fatwas or calls for Trump's killing as part of a broader vengeance campaign, referencing past incidences like the Salman Rushdie case and framing it as organized revenge until the U.S. collapses. This ties into Fridays of blood vengeance rhetoric and nationwide protests. During demonstrations and commemorations, including those around Khamenei's death, posters and chants have targeted Trump, Lindsey Graham, Israeli leaders, and others with bullseye imagery or assassination motives. Graham himself publicly responded to one such poster days before his own death, posting it defiantly on X. Iranian state media and newspapers celebrated Graham's death openly. Headlines called him the Merchant of Death or warmongering anti-Iranian senator, and congratulated the Iranian people on his passing, with anchors describing the news as sweet. Some publications ran "Get Ready for Sudden Death" graphics featuring Trump and others alongside of crossed-out images of Graham, implying symbolic victory or revenge. The U.S. has stressed the new actions are defensive, protecting free navigation for commercial vehicles. We'll be watching closely today. Markets are reacting. Stocks open lower in some cases amid the uncertainty. What are your thoughts? Back to you, Larry.
Well, all right. So let me get this straight. The little Chinese, and I do mean that word, little, are following us with their Wang surveillance system. So they're tailing us with their Wang, and then they're trying to use their Dong missiles to hit us. Sounds like we need to chop off some Wangs and intercept some Dongs and deal with the Chinese. I don't know why we allow our fleet to be shadowed. So if we're using Corsair unmanned drones to destroy Iranian naval assets, maybe we should cut off a few Wangs with them as well. That's my thought. Your thought, Rox?
I'll let Roxy weigh in.
Oh my God, I was like, I can't. Mom listens, right?
No, I couldn't help
the
it. Sorry.
And I agree, but good luck with the magnifying glass.
Exactly. The targeting systems are going to have to be good to hit Chinese Wangs and Dongs. I'm just saying. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, sir.
I noticed that one of the Interpol criminals, his name is Wang Dong, and he's been wanted for Social Security fraud. Just a heads up. Pretty funny, sir.
Yep, I know. And honestly, guys, the names of their missiles, I think, is the Dongfang, which in Chinese means east wind, but sorry. I'm an American, and I like to discuss the small Chinese society that thinks they're as big as Americans. You can take that comment for any way you want to take it. All right, I want to talk about something else that I think we encounter a lot of, and we've touched on a lot of them as we've moved through the topics today. And I saw a post from Steve Baker, who, in my opinion, has done yeoman's work, all right, in trying to unearth the J6 pipe bomber, all right? And he was talking about, or actually he had reposted somebody talking about low IQ versus high IQ conspiracy theories. The low IQ among us say things like the earth is flat, dinosaurs were fake, the moon landing was fake, and we make fun of them for it, all right? For me, anything that Candace Owens says can be added to the low IQ list. But where does the list change from low IQ to high IQ? But before we go to that question, it's my belief that Data Republican, who I think is a godsend for debunking conspiracy theories, had something on the Candace Owens latest diatribes. Dr. A, you brought it to my attention earlier. Can you cover this briefly?
I'll briefly cover it, and I'll grab the link and share it in this space. But essentially, Data Republican is exposing Dugan for his lack of education or just real world experience, but how he has been behind and manipulating Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and others, and how she's basically mocking him publicly now, which is well welcomed. This man, this Russian man, Alexander Dugin, has been a spokesperson or right-hand person to Putin, and now he's influencing people who are mainstream pundit, whatever you want to call them, voices in America. And now those same voices are talking about coming up with a third party in America. So Bigfoot in mouth in bad way, and I just love that Data Republican had it all over him. They're in the
No, I absolutely agree with you. And she had committed to unearthing Patriot Front, which I believe is another government operation. And so I actually DM'd her today. Not that I have a great relationship, but she is the Reckoning's own Data Republican. She has been on the show before. So I would very much love to see her turn her laser beam on that. But right now she's busy debunking all the lies surrounding the Charlie Kirk trial. We haven't covered that yet. I'm letting that story develop more. This is only a preliminary. We're going to have probably a solid month of this at least coming up this fall. So that's why I'm waiting on that. So where does the line change from stupid, low IQ list to a high IQ? All right, now looking at the various conspiracy theories that have happened in the last 20 years, I want to show that some things that are initially dismissed have actually come true. So let's talk about one of the granddaddies of them all, and that is the mass government surveillance program. All right, the claim was, the tinfoil hat theory was that the U.S. government was secretly collecting phone records, emails, and internet data on millions of citizens without warrants. This was initially dismissed. They said we were all crazy and to take off our tinfoil hats. Well, what happened? Edward Snowden's 2013 leaks revealed that the NSA's PRISM program had bulk data collection, and this has been confirmed by documents, court cases, and reforms like the USA Freedom Act, which still left a hole wide enough for them to drive a Mack truck through in terms of protecting us. All right, so what about the COVID-19 lab leak hypothesis? They claim that the virus escaped from we claim that the virus escaped from the lab in Wuhan, with the U.S. providing gain-of-function research. Initially, we were told what? That we were racist, that this was a racist conspiracy theory by many government officials, media, and scientists. What did we find out by 2023 to 2026? It was confirmed that it was a lab leak. U.S. intelligence agencies and investigations, including a terrorist organization known as the FBI, as well as congressional reports, found it likely that it came from the Wuhan virology lab. This one is so dumb to me. Of course it came from the lab, all right, rather than from a bat. Now, Jeffrey Epstein's elite network, and he didn't kill himself. We say that Epstein ran a sex trafficking ring involving powerful people with possible protection and cover-up. And his 2019 death was suspicious. What do they say? Oh, he was in BOP custody. These things don't happen in the U.S. That's a fringe conspiracy theory. He had to commit suicide. Court documents, flight logs, release files from 2024 through 2026 confirmed that such powerful figures as Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and others, to include, I believe, Ehud Barak, I think that's the guy's name, that was an Israeli PM at one point, all right, have been involved in this. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction and ongoing release have fueled legitimate questions about Epstein's death. All right, okay, I've been in, all right, a secure cell like the one Jeffrey Epstein was in. You're not given anything that you could kill yourself with. Okay, a sheet, they say he tied himself around that. They're actually made to be slip proof like that. They say that they literally said that they don't give you soap in your cell except for a tiny little one because they're afraid that you're going to coat the bottom of your floor with it so that you don't slip. There are cameras in some cells. If you're on suicide watch, another inmate has to watch you 24/7. I'm telling you, I've seen this system just as it is when you're in the secure housing unit, all right, the SHU as it's called, or as I call it, the hole. A guard randomly checks on you and logs it in every 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your level of security. It's impossible for this guy to have killed himself. Impossible. Something had to happen there. All right, guys, I see all the hands. We will get to you, I promise. Let me just continue with a few more. Big tech censorship and government collusion. They said that it's baseless. Again, anytime you hear that word, it's true, all right, that it is a right-wing conspiracy that the government was trying to keep the truth from coming out about COVID-19 and about the Hunter Biden laptop, etc. Social media platforms did actively suppress stories in coordination with government intelligence agencies, the Twitter files. Elon Musk released them proving it. Lawsuits and admissions show that the FBI and DHS contacts flagged content and pre-bunked stories that were harmful to the Democrat agenda. Remember, the Democrat agenda is the deep state's agenda, is the FBI's agenda, is the DHS's agenda. They are of, by, and for the Democratic Party and not of, by, and for the American people. Now, Missouri versus Biden highlighted the First Amendment issues associated with that. mRNA vaccine side effects and mandates overreach. Dr. A, I should have let you handle this, but I'll just go through it real quick. He said, hey, this vaccine, we're looking at a lot of professional athletes that are suddenly dying. What the hell's going on with myocarditis? All right, they initially said that this is just anti-vax misinformation. But later, the CDC, FDA acknowledged that myocarditis actually was linked to the shot, causing excess mortality and policy shifts. Some countries dropped the mandates as a result. Go ahead, ma'am.
There's also that question about Lindsey Graham, sir, because he was well vaccinated. He discussed it publicly, and you just said what you just said.
All right, so those are the ones that have occurred in the past. All right, let me just rifle through the ones that are in the current right now, and then we'll get to all the hands on this one. And Rox and Dr. A, feel free to jump in at any point in time. All right, we've briefly talked about it already. Lindsey Graham's death and cover-up. Many claim his death was suspicious, possibly a Russian strike in Ukraine, and they flew the body back. An assassination over Ukraine aid / Zelensky payments, or a deep state hit based off the fact that he wanted to say that through, and they don't want that true. Theories are rapidly spreading due to his recent trip and timing. Epstein files and the elite cabal. Ongoing releases of Epstein documents fuel claims of a protected global pedophile ring that may be eating children, Pizzagate, involving our politicians, celebrities, and intelligence agencies. Sub-theories include that he faked his death. I've seen photos of him allegedly on the streets in Israel. Who knows? 2024 and 2026 election interference. There are persistent claims of rigged systems, foreign meddling, or deep state sabotage, especially around President Trump's circle and the Senate races. Again, we don't know. What about HAARP and weather manipulation? We know what's going on. Blame for recent earthquakes, hurricanes, or extreme weather, such as the flooding at Camp Mystic that killed all those little girls in Texas last summer. All right, this resurfaces quite often. Need I talk about chemtrails, vaccine, depopulation agendas, globalist Great Reset, claims of orchestrating the economic collapse. We've heard on this show, digital IDs. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. All right. The deep state just tried to kill President Trump on Air Force One via a software-driven plane crash. I don't know if we talked about that one. We've just heard that one. Or my favorite one, and the one that I just immediately dismissed because it comes from our side, is this Q trust the plan, Bravo Sierra. Trump and the military have secret plans to deal with the deep state. The arrests are beginning now. The military tribunals have been formed. They're going to be executing people. No, remember, the deep state is of, by, and for the Democratic Party, not for us. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Rox real quick. What conspiracy theories did I miss, or comment on any of the ones you want? Then Dr. A, and then we'll go to hands. And Rox, if you could drive that, because I didn't see the order they went up in. Go ahead, Rox.
Oh man, there's so many dumb conspiracy theories. They get out of hand. Again, if anybody really knows what's going on, half the time there's a kernel of truth in every single one of them, and then they come in and they put about 90% of fake crap to make you look dumb. So don't fall for it. Hold on to that kernel of truth. And no, when you think that the earth is flat and you really think it's flat and you end up on a documentary on Netflix and you literally can't believe your own scientific experiment at the end, it's great, it's beautiful. I sat there with my mouth hanging open years ago when that came out. I can't remember what it's called, but it is a whole documentary of the flat earthers. It's amazing. You should watch it. Can't really believe they believe this. Like, they have maps and pictures and everything drawn up, and that the dinosaurs didn't exist either. And I'm like, oh my God, there is a thing called science. Let's go to hands. Dr. A, yours went up first, and then we would go to, I think it was Nathan, Jason, then RS.
I was just going to say, with a brief conversation I had with Larry this morning, the problem with many of these it is grounded in some small amount of truth, and then they take it and blow it up from there, and that makes it hard. And you can see pieces of evidence, like around the Trump assassination plan, the switching of the Air Force One and all of that. Thank you, both Roxy and researcher Stoff in the Purple Pill have shared an announcement this morning that Pete Hegseth made about security leaks to journalists and how that threatens the safety of our military. I believe those are all connected, but there's been some conspiracy theories that have been pushed out there that are quite extreme about that whole scenario. We'll wait to see what we are going to hear, what comes out of it. But yes, we know there's been leaks. There were leaks in the Pentagon that were taken care of. But for now, these journalists were not arrested. They've been subpoenaed to testify. So I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, let's talk about those journalists. What I heard initially was that they had written articles that were basically talking about the plane crashing, and they were epitaphs for Trump. And now we find out that what it really was, the security of the airplane. So again, it's just quite irritating. All right. So Rox, go ahead and handle all the hands if you could, please.
Go ahead.
Actually, Rox, I had mine up way back when he was first talking about the Epstein thing, because I just wanted to pitch him two tiny little things. One of the things I really try to stay as level-headed as I can, but your brain is wired to fill in the missing pieces. Something about that doesn't sound right. And that's what makes it so hard, because Doc was saying there, there's so much actual truth that doesn't fit what the story is, that when all the rest of this gets sprinkled into theory, that you end up looking stupid. But one of the things with the Epstein that I noticed you didn't bring up was the very odd memorandum that the FBI created literally the day before he was dead, saying he was murdered. I was like, how are we just gonna just go right past that? Nothing to see here. That makes it really hard to not put a lot of credence in there. There is some nuggets of truth that aren't adding up, and especially with the McConnell thing, and we all saw it with COVID, like you were mentioning too, the Wuhan thing, and it's coming from bats. They throw so much crap at the window to see what'll stick to cover up the scratches that are there that you can't erase. And that's where the biggest problem in this really comes in. I was screaming at all the big accounts that I know last night. I was like, oh my God, you guys, please, this new McConnell photo, the AI generated photo, I even reposted it right away, because I made some snarky comment about how you can actually see his wife's hand up his rear end pulling the puppet strings. Something very crass, I understand, but I've got a very dark sense of humor, and I'm old sometimes, we'll just put it that way. But then I instantly, as soon as I hit repost or with that quote, I went, wait a minute, just go back. And I was like, look at the picture. I was zoom in. And I'm like, okay, notice first off, his hair looks exactly the same as it did. Did they give haircuts in the hospital? I don't think so. His hair should be quite a bit longer after being in there for 30 days. Maybe not, he's old, probably doesn't grow as fast. Fair enough. Go down to the newspaper. So then I zoomed in on that and I threw that into Grok and I said, can you please identify the publication and the date that this newspaper was done and by whom? And Grok's like, this is totally AI. This was created by account reporting 911 or something like that. I forget exactly who they said it was the original one. They're like, this is 100% false. And so then I followed it up and I was like, did Mitch or any of his staff, or is this reposted in any professional capacity on any of his active profiles? Did his wife repost this? Did anybody that's actually dealing with Mitch on a daily basis have anything to do with this? Grok's like, nope. And it's just all over my timeline right now. Everybody's like, I can't believe this. Even Laura Loomer's like, his staff are lying. I'm like, Laura, you didn't Grok it. Grok said nobody having anything to do with Mitch had anything to do with it. And I don't know.
Definitely brings in a new level of distinction that needs to be considered when we're talking about conspiracy theory versus real world. I appreciate your bringing that in. We need to move on with hands. I think Nathan was next.
Thanks. Even AI can be manipulated through programming, because if you ask it about COVID, it will say that it was beneficial to the vast majority of the population. So I tend to question that. With the Wuhan lab, we funded that, and I wonder if we funded the construction of that as well. Seems this was a deep state and Fauci involved as well. I believe I saw a post saying is USAID involved in that. But as an American companies, the American pharmaceuticals are the ones who profited. What would China's benefit be from all of this, if anything? Where was their profit other than manufacturing, which their manufacturing is done on behalf of American companies? So see China as the middleman in all of this, and and the CIA and whoever else is just trying to throw us a scapegoat to protect their people. With the Q that was brought up earlier, there is documentation showing that Epstein was involved with the inception of hijacking within 4chan. And to the disinformation or throwing everything at the wall, I think Candace Owens is a perfect example of that hijacking conversation and just bringing it to crazy town where everyone's just going to tune out.
No, I agree with you. I've tuned out on Candace a long time ago. As soon as she went full anti-Semitic, I'm done. Same thing with Qatar. What is it called? Tucker Carlson. I'm out on him too. Now, that being said, I still doubt.
How about when she told everybody to disobey direct order, every single active duty soldier disobey direct orders? That's when she lost me. I was like, you couldn't say anything more unpatriotic in your life. Bye.
There's no doubt about that. So again, those people eliminate themselves from the public discourse. Go ahead, Rox. Who's next?
Jason.
Conspiracy theory. I like to call us conspiracy factualists at this point because I think we're like 42-0. But the Russia collusion hoax, which dovetailed right into COVID. And give me a little bit of runway here, and I'll lay this out. For 3 years, they tried to unseat a duly elected president by framing him as a Russian asset. The Mueller report in June of 2019 comes out, nothing burger. July, Trump has a phone call with a foreign leader that he later gets impeached for. That foreign leader was none other than Vladimir Zelensky. And then in 2019, in December, he gets impeached. Nancy Pelosi holds the articles of impeachment for over a month. They were so hot to get him that she held it for a month while the virus was taking hold. Incidentally, in October of 2019, you had two major events. You had the Event 201 simulation of a global pandemic. How timely was that? Funded by Bill Gates and company. And then you had the World Military Games of 2019. These were the World Military Games of 2019 were held?
No.
Wuhan, China. Yes, that's right. Wuhan, China. You can look it up.
That's right. You're right. I do remember that now. Yes.
For the World Military Games of 2019 in October, the same day as Event 201 was launched. Incidentally, a news blip came out very quickly and then was gone that China tried to frame us for unleashing the virus, that we sent an abundance of bioweapons experts that stayed near the wet market because it was bat soup, and that we unleashed the virus at those games, and then all of those infected soldiers, 140 nations, thousands of soldiers competing in Olympic-style games, rappelling, archery, shooting, whatever. And at that games is where the virus was unleashed on the world. It took hold in December 31st, 2019. China said, hey, we have an issue. And the benefit to China was not having Trump get reelected, because 4 more years they were about to sign phase 1 of the trade deal, shrinking the trade imbalance to $200 billion from over $1 trillion of trade imbalance. And they were about to basically be on their knees, and they could not handle another 4 years of Trump, and neither could the Democrats. And so I believe those two colluded together. Why did they call it COVID-19? Why didn't they call it SARS-CoV-2? Because we all knew SARS-CoV-1, and that was a nothing burger. And it would have been a nothing burger again because it was a nothing burger. They called it COVID-19 because the marketing wouldn't have worked if it was SARS-CoV-2. Nobody would have bought it. Everyone would have went, we've seen SARS before, nothing burger, and we would have all moved on. They shut down the economy, stupid, because that was what was rolling for Trump. They sent everybody home, locked us all down, and forced the mail-in balloting so that they can steal the 2020 election. That's how that timeline plays out. And yes, the deep state and the Democrats were in cahoots with the CCP to make sure Trump wasn't elected for another 4 years, because he would have crushed them both with back-to-back terms. And then we got a puppet installed, and 18 months into Biden's presidency, Zelensky, the phone call he got impeached for, and the Russians, the asset they claimed Trump was working for, are at war within 18 months of Biden's presidency. And son of a bitch, the prosecutor got fired, right? Him and his son had nothing to do with the Ukraine. Get out of here. I'll land it there.
You are not wrong. I have long said all of those things and did miss those in the initial conspiracy rundown. The Russia collusion hoax, again, maybe we'll see somebody get prosecuted, but I still don't think we've seen anything. As a matter of fact, I've seen rumors. I got to tell you, that's another one that's bothering me a lot right now. Our side, again, claiming, the arrests are coming. They're going to happen any day. Oh, look, the grand jury panel's they're doing their work down in South Florida. I heard just the other day that Michael Fanoni and all the other clowns in J6 are finally going to get brought up on perjury charges. Exactly. Trust the plan. No, I don't trust the plan. I don't trust a single thing. All right, period. It's just the way it is. All right, Rox, I do want to thank you for joining the show. If you've liked what you've heard today, you got to spread it out. We do want this to grow. Again, I think there's a lot of content that comes out, and maybe you're getting it elsewhere, and I don't know, but I think we do have a slightly different spin on the way things are doing. I want to thank my co-hosts, Rox and Dr. A today, for adding great contributions, and we'll go from there. But Rox, go ahead and wrap the show with the quotes of the day, please, ma'am.
All righty. Since we were talking about all your little flock cameras and all that stuff, I decided to find some from good old 1984 Big Brother. And I'll just read the few of them that I found and post a lot in the pills. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Freedom is the freedom to say 2.4. We're just hearing a lot of that these days. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And that's from the book. Another one, does Big Brother exist? Of course he exists. The party exists. Big Brother is the embodiment of the party. Does he exist in the same way as I exist? You do not exist. And political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable and to give the appearance of solidarity to pure win. Sounds a lot like the Democratic Party, if you ask me. Yep. But those are the few I snagged. It's a great book. If you've never read it, you should. It should have been on your reading list, but maybe that got taken out too when the Communist Party took over our school system. So who knows?
I bet you it has, and we had things on trying to trans our kids put in place of that. I've said before, and I'll say again, if you have not read, all right, 1984, you're not going to get a lot of things on this show because it does form, I think, a lot of our political opinions, 3 hosts on the show. So again, that's it for the day. I want everyone to have a great week. Hopefully Iran will settle down, but you just never know. All right. God bless each and every one of you and have a great week.